This is M.anifest from Accra, Ghana, and you are listening to Planet Earth, Planet Rap. You know, music to the world. The only music you need to be listening to is right here.
PEPR.
A few months ago, we at PEPR, Planet Earth, Planet Rap, heard that M.anifest from Accra, Ghana was in our neck of the woods. And so we couldn't resist but to make the contact and see if we could spend a moment or two with him. M.anifest is the award-winning, acclaimed hip-hop artist from Accra, Ghana, who in 2015 was named by The Ghanian the foremost rapper on the continent. We had much fun chatting to this young, talented and trend-setting musician, and we got the answer to the question, who is M.anifest?
I think, I'm an artist, musician, hip-hop, doing hip-hop with African influence, African music, smacking it against hip-hop to see what kind of explosive content we can get. Over the years, I've refined it more and more, keep refining it. I began my professional career when I still lived in America, where I lived for 10 years. I ended up there by accident, intentional accident. I went to school there, but stayed, I guess, as life went along. So I released my first album in 2007. Now I'm back home in Accra, Ghana, still engaging rigorously as an artist that tends to go left of what goes on a lot in Ghana.
Yeah. How did you get introduced to hip-hop? And when was it that you were introduced to
I wish I really had a romantic story about it.
We're always hoping for one.
Yeah, but the truth is, I vaguely remember it was in my early years, definitely between the ages of, 5 and 8. So I don't know, early. It wasn't the first non-Ghanaian music I knew. So I knew high life, the music of my parents. Then I knew reggae, the music of every drinking spot, and and then the music of that tends to be in a lot of I guess developing countries. Well, everywhere actually, reggae is powerful. And then hip hop also came through a lot of younger people who were older than me, so older younger people. And then at the time, I always tell people we had only one. We didn't have FM radio, we had AM radio. So it wasn't like it was all over radio or anything of sorts. So it was definitely through tapes and through people who had access to people who went to Canada and the US and possibly even England. So it was early, but it wasn't, I can't remember a moment.
Yeah. And what is hip-hop to you? Is it entertainment? Is it a means of communicating a particular message? What is it to you?
I mean, I'm definitely using hip-hop as a musical medium. The thing I have always found charming about hip-hop is the fact that, I shouldn't say unlike many other forms, but I think especially with hip-hop, you can bend it to suit you. It's got this idea of representing, bringing where you're from into it. So even when you look at the US itself, every different region and place has its own sound, and having and it's also the sound of the youth. So it's like older people can dictate to us how to create it. It was created by young people and has always remained kind of something that is very strong for us amongst young people with low barriers of entry, and it was something that I felt very early as very compelling, that I felt like that was the modus operandi that I wanted to choose music-wise.
Yeah. And since you've just mentioned young people, is that your main target audience?
As my gray hair starts to show, I'm kidding. I think possibly when I began, I probably didn't envision a bigger audience than just younger people, because you're speaking to people, right? So your immediate language and the stories you're telling are probably, you think, are tailored more towards younger people. But as I've grown and as the music has grown, I think I've seen that I have a ridiculous demographic of people I appeal to, judging from some of the wide spectrum of shows I've been able to play. You know, sometimes in Ghana it would be completely young people at a university. Sometimes it would be at a place like an Alliance Française where you have some way older people, people my mother's age. Not that she's that old. Forgive me, Mom.
It's understood.
You're very young and vibrant.
Old is also okay.
Yeah, because I think, there's different levels of the content that appeals to people. I think the younger people tend to connect directly to content. The older people tend to connect more immediately to the musicianship, the musical quality, and especially when I'm performing, it allows them to say, "Oh, okay, this is great. We might not understand everything you say. You speak too fast,"
which is the idea.
But we connect with the musicality of it and sort of the vibes behind it. So I think it's a range, but primarily content-wise, younger people tend to be the ones who immediately connect. But I've seen a range, a growing range. Age demographic, yeah.
And with regards to your music, do you have a core message? Do you have a motif? Is there a theme?
I wish I did, in terms of something that was nice and pithy, and once again, you know, sexy to say that, hey, my message is love, my message is hope. But I think my message is, you know, is reality, is like an honest truth, and of being able to tell untold stories. I mean, it's funny that I came here to talk about storytelling, but one of the powerful things is being able to represent a voice that tells stories that people rarely hear, and that if you hear my music, you possibly will have a peek into modern day Ghana life for young people, and even in general, and that I think is powerful. So it's a wide range. So even when it's personal, it still indicates a certain level of because I'm part of a society and I'm part of an experience.
Political.
Yeah, and part of a bigger experience that exceeds just me. I wish all my experiences were just mine, but other people also have experienced the same things.
It's relatable.
Heartbreak and all these things that people fall in love. Apparently, everybody does that.
Apparently.
yeah. So it's just located more from. The language or understanding comes from a certain place that I guess when you hear situated, regardless of the topic, situated somewhere.
Earlier on, you mentioned something about hip-hop has that element of allowing people to speak about where they're coming from or where they come from. So you bring in that aspect. For you, did you start your music when you were still in the US, or was it originally while you were in Ghana that you started doing hip-hop?
I was my first rap group when I was maybe 14 years in high school, in boarding school in Ghana. That was my first foray.
Your debut.
Yeah, my debut. I think part of the drive was I'd enjoyed writing, but it was also, come to think of it, it was also a cool thing to do, you know.
I still think it is.
Definitely the cool factor, but terrifying at the same time. So, because if you're able to stand in front of your friends at that time who are brutal, you know, I think at that age people are brutal, they can laugh and snicker at anything that is like, ha, you're terrible, you know, kids. Yeah.
It's unshakable confidence that you develop then.
So if you're able, I didn't develop that unshakable confidence then though. I pretended. There's a classic picture of me at that time. I saw on Facebook once that I'm performing and then my eyes were down. So I was definitely I still had a bit of fear, but well, you know, by the time over the years, I began to know myself more, and I began to know more about music and what I wanted to do. I think the confidence grew to a proportion in which I could transform every time I had to do what I had to do. Yeah.
I like what you say. I began to know myself a little bit more. I thought that's very thought-provoking, profound. earlier on we were talking about how identity is a curious thing.
Yeah.
When you were in the US, you did music, you continued your rap in the US, right? Did your music feel, or was it any different there from what it is when you're in Ghana? Do tell me more about that.
There's something that you can't help sometimes, which is where you are. You're speaking the language of the environment you're in. And I think when I began, I wanted to do the best imitation of hip-hop as I loved it, without knowing that but that's what it was. It was just raw and honest, but honest to the environment. I was in America, I was in Minnesota, I was still, and my experience then was more of an immigrant, and I was calling myself African when all along I called myself a Ghanian, so it was different, in that regard. And I listened to my first record maybe once every couple of years, and I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. Like, it's good, but I could never make that same kind of music because it wasn't fully reflective of me, but it was reflective of me at the time. And so it's changed now. I've become more myself, and I'm becoming. It's terrifying. I'm becoming. It's terrifying in a good way. Where it's like I'm becoming so much more. The way I speak and the way I think and the way I am is translating so much easier. The connection in the music is translating so much easier. So I speak English, I speak Chi, I speak Pidgin. You hear it in the music now because that's how I speak.
Yeah.
I grew up on high life. I love hip hop. I'm a hip hop guy. I love reggae. You hear it in the music now. You hear the fusion. You hear this worldly man who is Ghanaian raised and has lived other places. You hear it now. The connection is becoming closer and closer to the point where it's like, wow, I could, I don't have to. I could change the name of my birth certificate to M.anifest and it would be the same guy. Yeah.
And how is it different now that you're back in Ghana? How is the music different then? How is that environment influencing the music?
Well, I know more about music now, and I also have the capability of making the music I've always wanted to make. And I have people also who have that same connection to the music, and then and also just different set of communication, people I'm communicating to, and it's a changing world, and that I want to not just keep up with, but actually be forward thinking about, because my concerns with Ghana are much stronger, than my concerns with America, because it's a place where I was born and raised, and a place where I always knew was going to be my home, and so if things are going bad, they affect me. If things are going good, they affect me. I can't just jet. I could come to Finland. I'd be cold and I'd go back to Ghana.
It'd be too cold and you'd really have to go back and face the music. Yeah. So you spoke about the different languages that you speak. What role, how important is language for you when you rap? Which language you choose? Is there any considerations as to what you decide to use for an album and for which message?
Yeah, I think the language of the music is first and foremost the most important part, because people feel music more than they hear it.
Yeah, it's vibration.
Yeah, I can hear a song and enjoy it, and when I hear it over, I might then probe into the lyrics. So the language of the music for me is the most important. So that's why I worry about the most, the vibes, And then, of course, what I'm communicating is very important to me, how I do it. But now I'm less worried. I'm not, because there are people in Ghana who also might not speak as much English, and Chi is not the only. There are 46 languages in Ghana, but Chi is a majority, and then there's Pidgin, which is the language of, I'll say, young people. It's existed before all of us were born, but the young people tend to speak Pidgin more. So if I want to make certain points where on the cutting edge and I might use Pidgin. So yeah, it's very important in terms of choosing the language in which to communicate, because music is a communication thing. To become a better communicator, you have to know how you're using language, and I think I'm getting better at that, and now I'm speaking more to my people than speaking for about.
It's true. And before, when you were in the US, did you feel like you were representing Africa, speaking on behalf?
Yeah, inevitably that happens, I had a song, I was like, represent who? Represent what? Represent Africa with a spectacular street vernacular. Sounded nice. It was
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I wouldn't do that in Ghana. We already know.
No, it wouldn't make sense for you to do that there.
It would be cool, but in that context, it won't be as powerful than me doing a song like Some Wavy, which is much more descriptive of what's going on, and it resonates deeper, and then allows other people to then jump into the world of Ghana through
your
a Ghanian thing rather than me having to explain all the time.
Yeah. I find that when I'm in South Africa, I feel a different sense of being South African when I'm in South Africa than I feel when I'm in Finland. I feel another sense of being South African. Do you find that for yourself? Is there a different sense of you being, especially as a musician, when you're abroad? Is there any difference in being Ghanaian?
Oh, there's always going to be a difference, but I try to be consistent with who I am as a Ghanaian in terms of, and now I am much more consistent now that I'm much more rooted home again. So I see the world through the eyes of a Ghanaian, not just a Ghanaian who's traveled. I'm less likely to talk a certain way just to be to assimilate per se, just to be heard, just to make or be unnoticed as different. I'm confident in the Ghanaianness.
Yes.
Doesn't exist.
Well,
but there's always going to be a difference. I mean, one of the things is just a simple level of statistics. We were talking about this on the panel I was on. Like, if I am here in Finland and I'm the only Ghanaian in whatever square radius, there's this sort of thing that will happen where you feel like there's going to be a burden of representing. Yeah. But I don't
burden of representing. Why burden?
Burden because everybody has their story.
Expectation.
And everybody has their story, and it's so nuanced that why is it that I can't speak for 25 million Ghanaians? I shouldn't dare do that. We need many more voices here. So, but inevitably that happens, and that's always a challenge for Africans and African musicians too, especially on this side, because there are not that many voices. It's not like American artists in which there are so many voices being heard all over the place, so that the representations are many.
As an artist, do you feel compelled to be a representative of Africa when you're in the diaspora?
I have to represent myself first.
You represent yourself first.
And that will
translate then to African.
So even if somebody in Ghana disagrees with me and be like, this guy, what he's talking, then that's his opinion, but I'm being truthful to my thing. I'm not trying to, I can't act like a kid who grew up in the village just because I'm sitting in front of National Geographic and I want to give them a picture. No, that'd be an absolute lie. I have to be a reflection. I can't go to an audience that maybe they might love the songs in which I might sing all in G because it's exotic. But I don't have that many of those songs, partly because my approach is always trilingual, because that's who I am, I studied English. I grew up knowing Chi.
You're capable of speaking the languages.
Oh, that's how I speak, so, I don't know. More and more the confidence built, and that also comes by virtue of moving back, You get the strong sense of, this is me, or as we say, this be me.
How have your travels impacted your music and your perspective?
It just shows you such greater possibility, and also, when it comes to music, the more the sum of your influences and how much good music if the what do you call it, the substance of music is really low standard, the probability that you make great music is low. And when you get to travel and experience all sorts of different standards of music and of even basic infrastructure of how performances are set up, stages and all this thing, it does improve your quality. I'm exposed, and that exposure doesn't allow me to measure myself just by the standards of the next person I'm sitting within Ghana, but I think of it as I'm part of it, also a bigger musical scene, which is in the world, which has so many different creative angles, and I could be inspired by somebody doing, you know, some bluesy folk music from Wisconsin, you know, and say, wow, that's interesting. That means, you know, if I'm able to take some of this palm wine high life and do something interesting, that could also be interesting.
Speaking of a bigger musical scene, is your music geared towards Ghanaian audience or African audience or international audience?
I think since I came back...
Regardless of language, that is.
Yeah, since I came back, I think we decided very early sort of that choosing Africa as a base was a very sensible thing to do, especially since the continent has shrunk, you know, young people on the continent, and a lot of people are experiencing many of the similar things. And so, yes, Ghana is the primary base, but Africa is also the primary base. And sometimes when you concern yourself with that first, everything else happens, you know. Somebody else who, you know, people are very compelled and attracted by the idea of authenticity, this word that everybody has abused and used. So if you're more original and authentic, you know, you attract things. I've read different things about people like Fela and other people who, you know, as much as they were exposed, and they were smart about how they knew that their music could travel past Africa, but they were very headstrong about how it needed to reach their people, and I think it's very important, you know.
And we saw most of your videos, and we play your music.
Which is unfortunate, you know, in Ghana, because we don't have like unlimited internet. People sometimes don't watch the videos on the internet because their data is going.
I know. So and those videos are pretty, you know, interesting, and I suppose you have to watch the whole video. I know when we lived in South Africa, we were limited to one video a day.
But
maybe that was a reflection of our economical state. But yes, your videos are really, really great. And we were mentioning it earlier on that they've got this element of being these short films. Is that a deliberate stylistic device?
Yeah, definitely it's deliberate. I mean, I think first and foremost, I want a great video.
Of course, naturally.
Because I think that in itself is one is another part of the arts, and it's just great to have a great video. Two is like, what could be a better advertisement for the music than a great video? And then, I mean, it's also nice to deviate from what is normally done, which gets tired, you know, sitting up in front of the camera like, yo. I do some of those. I like it, you know. It's part of it.
Because you can.
You have to, because I can, and it's nice. You know, you get to throw your hands around. And,
why not?
And then move, you know, in certain respects. But, yeah, I think I have a lot of creative people that I know and who are also around me. And we spend time trying to think of new inventive ways and original ways to do music videos that bring new dimensions to the music itself, because that makes it very interesting, and especially when you choose the path I've chosen, which is not always being part of the dominant or trendy music of the time. For people to pay attention, you need all the extras.
Yeah.
And a good music video is a good extra.
I guess it is. It really is.
We haven't even reached that level of greatness there, but we're putting in effort.
I think as long as you're alive, you will always be eclipsing the previous bit that you've done. You have to. I think it's natural. Yeah. It's a natural progression. Mm-hmm. African hip hop. What can you say on African hip hop?
I always tell people that's such a dubious term.
It is. I mean, that's why I can't even expand on it. But I know it is a term that exists, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very difficult because I know it's very important for, you know, for strategy-wise for us to be able to name the music and call it and stuff. But African hip hop is a dubious term sometimes, because is it just hip hop from Africa, or is it actually a sound? And it's very confusing. But I think, in general, intuitively, what that makes me think is music from Africa that is hip hop related. Well, what I think about it is we've reached a point where we have to evolve past just linguistic difference or just also being part of whatever trend is popping off in America whatever. We can be inspired by those, but we have to find ways to always like bring elements of our music into it and ourselves to a very greater degree, because it will make the music fresh for local consumption, and also make other people interested in it. I mean, the circle of inspiration, it has to be a circle of inspiration. It can't always be this way. We are taking stuff and then just copying. We've reached a point where we are able to bend and, appropriate as much as we can, and, do it like all the former artists used to do when they were African art. I can't remember if it was Picasso or one of those people who took African stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but yeah, we can do the same too, and it's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes art beautiful, and I'm trying to do that very much so, because it makes me feel comfortable and proud to do the music I do, when I feel like it represents not just my interest in hip hop, but also my I don't want to say identity, it just sounds very academic, but my belonging to Africa. My music has to show where I belong.
So it has that African influence that has to be very present, because that's the point.
Then also so that we can be able to make new music. We can't have African music being just the music of Miriam Makeba or
it has to evolve.
It has to evolve. We have to have new age music that from Africa that 30 years from now,
a current reflection of these times.
30 years from now, somebody will be like, African music is M.anifest, WHP, Wizkid, all that. I mean, so we have to strive to make it better and better, and we are in some regards to the point where I think we're beginning to attract attention, so that it's not just the youth studios that people are paying attention to, but they are being forced to pay attention to what the younger artists from Africa are doing.
Thanks for checking our interview with M.anifest out. PEPR, Planet Earth, Planet Rap, the only show, segment, and station in the world of hip-hop that play you the world of hip-hop. We are powered by RAPstation, and find us also on Twitter @PEPR Radio.